The metal plates are made.
Now, I noticed some others here where, for instance, this snapshot folder, I'm pretty certain they asked you on this one, didn't they, Frank?
That's right, that's right. That they wanted some sort of a summer flavor for that particular series.
And you really came up with it there. This one here intrigues me, Frank. First time I saw it, I certainly thought that was leather.
Well, they asked for something novel in that, and we were kind of stumped at first, and we sat down to ponder it. One of the boys just happened to pull his wallet out of his pocket, and I caught it, and I said, there's my cue. So
well,
we followed it up.
That shows us how artistic ideas are born. Well, Frank, I'm beginning to see that being a Picasso of the Postal Service is quite a challenge to an artist.
Yeah.
By the way, I promised our viewers I'd find out something I want to ask you right now. Is it envelope or envelope?
Well, some say one, some say another. Take a choice.
I'll tell you, I'm going to see the president of the company in a little bit. I'm sure he'll give me a very definite answer.
Probably.
Thank you, Frank. Right now we want to turn to John Kennedy, who is going to give us some background about the early art of envelope making.
Until fairly recent times, envelopes were all made by hand. Envelope making was often a private affair, each person cutting his own. Or it was a rainy day sideline for bookshops or stationers. Of course, if we relied on this system today, it would take about half the people in the United States to turn out all the envelopes that are needed for business and personal uses. In the main post office of Los Angeles alone, more than 7 million envelopes are received and sorted and delivered every day. About the only people who might feel a little more comfortable with fewer envelopes would be those knights of the mail pouch who serve as the final link in our great postal system. Now let's return to our success story reporter Ken Peters and Alec Kenzie, president of Coast Envelope Company.
Well, Mr. Kenzie, there's one question I want to ask you so we get it settled right from the start here. Is it pronounced envelope or envelope?
Well, either or either. It's the same story.
I thought I'd get it.
It doesn't make any difference so long as they order them.
Well, I thought I'd sure get a definite answer from you. Well, whatever they are, Mr. Kenzie, I guess this is where the actual manufacturing starts.
That's
the
right.
Stacks of large paper. I've certainly never seen so many colors and kinds of paper in one place before.
Well, color is the order of the day. It's needed for direct mail to appeal, also needed for return envelopes to help sort and that sort of a thing.
I guess the importance of color and the different styles wasn't true 38 years ago when you started.
Oh, no. They're mostly white then.
Well, now, what's the first step in making the envelope? Do you have to count these sheets?
No, they're counted at the mill at the time the paper is made, and they come, as you can see here, counted in lots of 500.
Oh.
And we cut them in 500.
In lots of 500. Well, now
right.
That's what we want to see next, how you actually cut the
Right.
envelope blanks. That's done over here in this die press.
That's right.
All right. That's a very interesting procedure here, Mr. Kenzie. Those dies are certainly an important feature in this. They go through the whole 500 sheets at once.
That's right. They're made of high-grade tool steel, and they're cut by craftsmen. They have to be sharpened properly, differently for different kinds of paper. Here's one.
Well, that'll give an idea. I think our viewers can see that really is a razor-sharp edge there, and has to be in order to go down through there properly. Of course, I imagine it's all worked out in advance, isn't it, to make sure you get the maximum number of cuts on each sheet?
Oh, that's right, Ken. Otherwise, it'd be wasteful. The thing is all laid out ahead of time. The cutters know exactly where to put the die so that the least amount of waste is developed.
Mm-hmm. We want to see this one cut here.
There it goes.
It really goes down through there, doesn't it? Well, fine. Of course, I know that although you try to prevent waste, that there is a certain amount of it here, as our viewers will be able to see over here in the waste barrel. However, Mr. Kenzie, as I understand it, this actually isn't strictly waste, is it?
No, it isn't. We sort it as you see it here, and then it goes out to the baling room where it is put up in bales.
Well, we're going to see how that baling process in just a little bit. I'll tell you, I told our viewers that we were going to show them how the window envelopes were made, so I'd like to, if we may, look over here at the automatic punch press.
Oh, that's interesting. This is a very new machine. It hasn't been out but a few years, and it cuts the holes in the windows, in the envelope blanks, at the rate of about 50,000 an hour.
Boy, that is wasting no time, is it?
That's right.
Well, now we'll be able to see a little later how the windows are actually installed in there. Here we have the holes cut into the blank
That's
itself.
right.
I notice over here you have some doing the same job on hand presses, huh?
That's the way it was done before this machine was developed.
And you still use this type of operation, huh?
Oh, yes, for the smaller jobs, where it wouldn't be too economical to set a high-speed machine.
I see. Well, I think it's interesting to see the various, the evolution, you might say, of the different methods used. For instance, I know that you have automatic machines to fold the envelopes, but what intrigues me is the fact you still have women here folding them by hand.
Just as they did in the olden days.
Yeah. Now, why are you still doing that?
Well, some orders are small, special styles, and it doesn't pay to set up a high-production machine for that.
I'd like to have our camera watch Mrs. Brannon here, who is gluing the envelopes. And although we say this is a hand operation, she's developed such dexterity at it that, boy, it's almost as fast as by machine, isn't it?
Well, it seems that way, doesn't it? And it's taken her years to develop her facility for doing that.
I'll step over here and find us how many years. Mrs. Brannon, I guess I shouldn't disturb you. How many years have you been here at Coast Envelope?
26 years.
How long have you been doing this type of hand work?
Only 6 months before I came here.
Uh-huh. Well, for over 26 years. Well, Mr. Genji, don't run away from me now. This has certainly been very interesting to be able to see the evolution of the art of folding envelopes. In just a minute now from this hand operation, after we've been to the print shop, we're going to see those amazing automatic machines and also see how those windows are installed. In the meantime, I think it'd be interesting if John Kennedy showed our viewers what happens to that scrap paper we saw a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how various industries increase their efficiency and control their costs by getting the fullest possible use from their raw materials. No matter how carefully the die press operators work, there is bound to be a certain amount of scrap when they're through cutting out the envelope blanks. Some of the scrap comes out in such very small strips that it makes excellent material for packing. Coast Envelope uses much of it to prevent small boxes from rattling around inside large cartons. Other scrap, and the majority of it, is wheeled from the die cutting tables over to a huge baler. Truckloads are carried to the baler where they are compressed into very solid bales weighing 350 to 400 pounds. One large section of Coast Envelope Company is devoted to printing. Nearly all business or commercial envelopes carry some sort of printing on them, and this printing is usually done before the envelope is glued and folded. Because of the small amount of printing that appears in the envelope, most type is hand set, after which it is locked up in a form and a preliminary proof is taken on a small hand machine. When this proof is approved, the type in the locked up form will then be used to develop the plastic matrix. After the plastic matrix is developed, rubber is applied to it and they are put into a mold. With the use of heat and pressure, the rubber is forced into the indentations of the plastic matrix to reproduce the desired printing or signature or whatever may be required. This is the printing plate. Here at Coast Envelope, many types of printing presses are used for different printing jobs. To find out how some of these presses work, let's rejoin Ken Peters, our success story reporter, and Mr. John Davidson, Vice President of Coast Envelope.
That they can use the whole backside of an envelope to carry an additional message at very little extra cost.
I gather that that's the particular thing that you people are really featuring, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, now, our cameraman here is going to give us a look over this print shop to give us an idea of how large it is. And I think that first thing they're seeing down there, that battery of presses down there, what are they, John?
Well, Ken, those are Harris rotaries. You know, we have all kinds of printing equipment here for envelopes, but they run around 12,000 impressions an hour, print 1 or 2 colors on either side of the envelope.
Well, I know they're extremely important. However, I know from talking with you that the machine that you're particularly excited about, which is really your pride and joy, is this one right here.
Well, that's right. We're very proud of this machine. It's the latest of its kind in the western part of the United States. We just imported it from Germany, and it's doing an elegant job for us.
Well, now, what is so distinctive about this particular machine, John?
Well, the outstanding feature, first of all, Ken, is that it is an aniline press. Aniline inks dry instantaneously, and that allows us to do 2 things. We can run the press faster, about 18,000 impressions an hour, And also it allows us to send the envelopes to the next department for folding as soon as they've been printed instead of having them stand overnight to dry.
Now, John, you spoke about aniline ink. I, for one, don't know much about that. Is that a new type of ink?
Yes, Ken, it is. Usually they use grease-based inks, but this is aniline ink. It's a dye that's mixed either with alcohol or with water. You can see it inside the chamber.
Yeah. And the fact that it dries so quickly makes it possible for you to actually print 3 colors in one run through this small machine, huh?
That's right. We can print 3 colors, 2 colors on one side and 1 color on the other, which is one step ahead of the rotaries.
Uh-huh. So, John, I wonder if you can pull out a sample there for us so we can see what job it's doing.
Surely. As you notice, it's an airmail envelope with the stripes around the perimeter. And if you'll turn it over, Ken, you'll see the tint block on the other side.
Now, what's the importance of this tinting?
Well, that tint block does 2 things. It opaques the sheet, makes it so that you can't see through it. And also, I think it adds a certain distinction to the envelope.
It certainly makes it very, very attractive. Well, of course, at this point, it doesn't look much like an envelope. We're quite anxious to see how these are folded and put together. So while I'm getting over to that particular part of the plant, John Kennedy will take over for a minute.
You are viewing Success Story, an on-the-spot telecast brought to you by Richfield. Tonight we're visiting the plant of the Coast Envelope Company at 810 East 3rd Street in Los Angeles. When letter writing and business communications increased, it became obvious that a better and faster method had to be developed for making envelopes. Various types of machines were tried without success until a plunger type of machine was developed. And while the plunger machine has improved a great deal from the first models, the basic principles are pretty much the same. The envelope blanks are placed in a pile on the feeding mechanism of the machine. The plunger rises and falls, creasing the blank and starting it through the mechanism where it is gummed and folded. The envelopes then travel along a chain-type belt, during which time the gum is dried. There is also a window plunger which forms the envelopes and glues the window over the pre-cut opening. While the plunger can turn out approximately 40,000 envelopes in 8 hours, the newer rotary-type machines have a much greater capacity, which we'll discover when we rejoin Ken Peters, our Success Story reporter, and Mr. John Davidson.
Oh, say, John, I forgot to ask you. I'm still trying to find out. Is it envelope or envelope?
Well, I don't know, Ken. Some people call it envelope, and I guess some people call it envelope.
Okay, excuse me for asking. Now, as I understand it, John, this rotary machine that we're going to see practically revolutionized the whole envelope business, huh?
That's right, Ken. This rotary, of course, operates on the principle of a wheel instead of the oscillating motion of the other older presses. And as a result, it operates smoother, and it goes faster, and it's much more versatile in that we can run different sizes of envelopes on the machine, all the way from theater ticket size to an envelope a foot in width.
John, I'd sure like to show our viewers how it works here. And the envelopes are introduced. They're fed in at this point. The blanks are. And now the first job that's going to be done is to gum the seal flap. So these are spread out in such a way that each one of the seal flaps is exposed. And as they move in behind this gum tray, a little wheel comes out and applies the gum to the seal flap, as you can see here. Now nothing else can be done until that gum is dried, so they move on down through that tunnel and go all the way back to the other end of the machine, all the time being bombarded with heated air. And of course, it's all timed out in such a way that when they come out on top here, that gum is perfectly dry. I think you can see the application of the gum on the plant. Then things really begin to happen in a hurry here. They move into this point. The envelopes are separated. When they go under this roller, they are scored for the top and the bottom folding. And then these 2 little arms that move in and out actually fold in the end flaps. Then as they go underneath the glue tray here, these little drums here contact the glue and deposit it on the end flaps. As you move into this point, the bottom flap is tucked underneath that roller so that it is sealed. Then all that remains to be done is for this little knife here to fold over the seal flap, and we have a completed envelope. The result, they move out here, and this little spiral effect here feeds them out into the point of delivery here, one at a time, and they are counted automatically in lots of 25, and that's done by projecting the 25th envelope all along here, so that as Eva works here, she can very easily grasp 100 envelopes and put them into the carton, 500 to a carton. It's as simple as that. Oh, by the way, this is Claire Stevens here, who taught me everything I know about these rotary machines. This fellow knows an awful lot about them. How long have you been here at the plant?
30 years.
Now, what's the capacity of this rotary machine?
This will do about 16,000 an hour.
About 16,000.
Average 16,000.
How does that compare with the puncher?
Well, they're about 5,000. 5,000.
Fine. Thank you, Claire. Now, there's another machine down here I want you to see. It does essentially the same type of job, but it does one thing that this machine doesn't do that I want you to see, and that is install those little glassine windows that we've been talking about. That process starts right over here, where the envelopes are separated in such a way that the little window hole is completely exposed. And then as it moves along here underneath the gum tray, gum is applied all the way around that window hole. Then if you look up here, you can see that is the roll of glassine tape that is being fed into the machine. And down here it is cut off. I'm going to ask Ed Kist if he'll slow down the machine and run it through manually, and you'll be able to see. Now, there is the little strip that is deposited right over the window hole. We can watch that again. That little strip is cut off and deposited on. Now, could you start her up full force again, Ed, so we can see how... You see, that's really too fast for the human eye to observe. Then on down the other end of the machine, the operation is practically identical with the one that we just saw. A very nice folding action here where you can see the sides are being folded in. Well, John, I must admit these are really amazing machines. I'll tell you, though, in spite of all the great variety of envelopes you have, it occurs to me that there's one particular field that remains untouched.
Well, what's that, Ken? We're always looking for business.
Well, John, I was just thinking if there was some way that you could get all of the youngsters to go away to summer camp to actually write all those letters they promised to write back to their folks, you'd have to have twice as many machines running at twice the speed.
This ingenious machine, which is being run by Mrs. Vina Winkler, adds extra security to heavy-duty envelopes, for it installs the metal clasps, which I'm sure are familiar to us all. Ever since the hand-folding days, many methods have been used to make envelopes tamper-proof. Over the years, the more involved type of fastenings have disappeared, but the clasp is expanding its uses all the time, especially since this type of envelope can be reused for filing or storing papers after it has served its primary use.
Well, now this is a special section of the plant where open-end envelopes are made, which is quite a large part of this business. This is what you call an LO machine, which means large open-end envelope. And this is the envelope blank for one of these large envelopes. Let's see how they're converted into an actual open-end envelope. Here they're fed up on this little elevator, and they're picked up into the machine and fed down through these aligning pins here. And then just like on the machine we saw, they encounter this scoring roll here, which actually scores all four sides of the envelope. And then, as we move along here, the two side flaps are folded in together. One of the flaps is glued, and then they come together and are sealed. And down at this end, as they move over this end roller, the bottom and the top flap are sealed. Now the bottom, or rather are gummed, and then the bottom flap is sealed. And then just like we saw before, the seal flap has to move all the way back through a drying tunnel till finally it comes out here with the seal perfectly dried. And it moves up here, and one by one, again, they are fed by this spiral device here, one at a time. And Connie, working here, has them automatically counted out for her, so she can select 50 at a time and put them into the carton. Now, of course, I think we're all familiar with the uses for these large open-end envelopes, but they've got a machine over here which is used for the small open-end envelopes. And I'd like to ask Jack Hunt here, the superintendent, to show us a sample of the small envelope.
Paper-made refill envelope.
Oh, that's for the refill cartridges.
That's right.
I think we're all familiar with that. Boy, this looks like a tremendous order, Jack.
Well, about 25 million.
Really? Well, that gives us an idea that the small open-end envelopes is a big part of this business. Let's take a look at this machine. It's essentially the same as the one we just saw, you might say, on a miniature scale. I think you've realized already that an awful lot of these workers here at Coast Envelope have been here for a good many years. And that is certainly true of Mrs. Ray Hines here. Mrs. Hines, how many years do you say you've been at Coast Envelope?
35.
Before that, you lived in my own state of
Yes,
Wisconsin,
sir.
didn't you?
Yes, sir.
I believe you told me you're going back there this summer.
The 1st of August.
You're not going to stay there.
I should say not. I'm coming right back to the Coast Envelope.
All right, fine. We wanted to visit this department because I think we usually associate envelopes with mail. And I know I was surprised to discover that about 15 billion letters a year are turned out for purposes other than mailing, for filing, for pay envelopes, theater tickets, and so forth. Now we're ready to have John Kennedy tell us what happens after the envelopes leave the production line.
Most of Coast Envelope's business is done right here in Los Angeles and throughout Southern California and parts of Arizona and Nevada. Over half of the total envelopes manufactured are sold and delivered by the envelope manufacturer directly to large users. For smaller orders and for those which have only a short distance to travel, the envelopes are packed and padded in lightweight boxes, which are then tied into bundles with the aid of this ingenious tying machine. Now, to give you some idea of the variety that is produced by Coast Envelope Company, we're going to rejoin Ken Peters, our success story reporter, and Mr. Alec Kenzie.
Kenzie, I've heard you referred to as the dean of the envelope business here on the West Coast. You've certainly seen a tremendous growth of your company in 38 years' time, haven't you?
Oh, that's right. Well, the industry's young anyway, so that's a good sector of the industry, isn't it?
What can you tell us about future plans for this company, which now has 2 modern plants here and in San Francisco?
Well, the future tells a story in the growth of California. We're bound to grow because California is growing.
Mr. Kenzie, I can't resist congratulating you on the really fine group of people you have here. Really, you just immediately sense that you have a very happy relationship throughout.
Well, it's been a happy relationship. They've been fine people to work with.
There's one very happy gentleman here I certainly want our viewers to meet. That's your sales manager, Mr. Howard Liddell. Howard, you've been here, I think you said 32 years.
That is correct, Ken.
Looks to me as though the works agreed with you.
Oh, it's an easy business.
Well, this gives us some idea of the tremendous variety of envelopes. This is just a few of them, isn't it?
Oh, they're almost endless in variety, Ken.
What do you feel is the outstanding feature of your envelope program?
Well, I should say there's one thing in particular that I would like to point out, and that is the excellent advertising value that can be obtained from using the back and flaps of the envelopes in particular for carrying an advertising message. It's just wonderful value. Many pairs of eyes see these before they reach their destination.
You know, a thing that I hadn't realized is how many different types of envelopes one company would have to have printed.
Oh, yes, indeed. Now, for example, here's one of the large insurance companies, and they will use upwards of 25 different envelope items. These are just a few of them shown here.
Same thing seems to be true over here with the department stores.
Quite true.
Great variety of them.
Yes, indeed. The department stores will use as many or more even than the insurance companies.
Well, now, Howard, of course, so far tonight we've concentrated 100% on your envelope business, but I also know that one of your largest divisions is the book cover division.
Oh, your goodness, yes.
Now, this is what we mean by book covers. These are the very attractive covers that are made by this division, covers for catalogs and different loose-leaf publications. And they also are one of the world's largest manufacturers of checkbook covers. Pretty good chance that your own checkbook was made right here at Coast Envelope. Matter of fact, I see Gene Baum, the sales manager of this division over here, who is studying his checkbook. What, are you trying to see whether you fellas made it? Or?
No, Ken, I know we made this check cover because this check cover revolutionized checkbook industry with our new patented Duragrip clip.
Now, speaking of your book cover division, what percentage of the overall business does it represent?
Well, we do about a third of the total volume of business in the Coast Envelope Corporation.
And I know you figure you've just scratched the surface on it, too.
Well, we think Southern California has a great future, and we're going to grow along with it.
Well, I certainly hope we can come back and see how your book covers are made. By the way,
well, I hope you do, too.
This is my last chance to find out whether it's envelope or envelope.
Well, some people say envelope, some people say envelope.
It's very apparent we're not going to find out whether it's envelope or envelope, but we found a great deal about how they're made, and I'm pretty sure that for a while at least, when we get our mail, we're going to inspect the envelope as well as the contents.
The envelope industry is a small one as industries go, but it portrays in miniature all the best characteristics of American free enterprise. It produces a superior product at low cost, and in so doing makes enough money to pay good wages, generous taxes, and a reasonable return on its investment. Tonight's success story has been visiting the Coast Envelope Company. Since its early beginnings in 1917, Coast has grown with the Los Angeles area. Starting with a small shop and about 10 employees, it has expanded its operation until it is now one of the largest West Coast suppliers of all types of envelopes. Coast has been a leader in developing new types of equipment and adapting machines and methods to streamline its production and to give better service to all its customers. Through this concentration on efficiency and service, Coast has built its success story.